In this episode of Akram's Ideas, I wear a yellow top. Hello and welcome. I'm Akram Burris, and you're watching Akram's Ideas, bringing creative and crazy ideas to life. It is once again time for my seasonal Show and Tell. So if you are new to Akram's Ideas, unlike other sewing bloggers who typically do a monthly plans video and then a monthly show and tell where they share with you everything that they made in a month, I've broken it up into a seasonal set. So a 3-month batch. This is primarily because I find that some months I'm way more productive than other months. And to average it all out, I do everything in seasons. And since I'm going to be kind of making the same type of things for that entire season, it just makes sense for me. So in this episode, we are taking a look at my winter show and tell. This is everything that I made from December on until the end of February. So let's get started with the show and tell, starting with December, which feels like ages ago now, but I will start off with some holiday makes that I made, starting with this lovely little dress that I made my niece Layla. I had asked her previously before making this what did she want as far as a garment made for her, and she said she wanted a dress and she wanted it to be pink and orange. And so I had this lovely fabric in my stash that not only had the pinks and orange but had this purple. It was check, it was cute, and I thought that it would make a great little shift dress for her. I added some patch pockets to the dress along with some rick-rack, and it was just a simple, I can't even remember what pattern I used. It was just a pattern that I had in my stash for a very basic toddler shift dress. Now, I still have this dress because when I tried it on her, it did not fit over her head. So I actually had to unpick one of the shoulder seams to get it on her. And it fits her except getting on her head. So I am trying to debate how to fix this so that she can actually wear it. I've had two ideas. I thought that I have some scrap fabric left over. I thought that I could create a little extension and have it button, but then I'm worried that I won't put the button in the right place and it'll be too tight or too high up or too low. So my second thoughts were to just do tie straps at the top. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what the best method is for that, and how do you address that issue, because I actually used a pattern for this and everything else fits her except the neckline, which is really weird. So it's a little difficult when making clothes for other people to get the fit right when they're not accessible to you and all you are working with are their measurements. So I guess next time I should measure the circumference of her head. I don't know. But any suggestions you have for how I should fix that dress so that she could at least wear it this summer would be helpful. But that was the first holiday make that I made back in December. The second selfless holiday make that I made was a kimono jacket for my mom. Actually, about a year and a half ago, she sent me a whole bunch of skirts that she wanted let out and resized and everything, and I am awful about mending stuff, and I said sure and have never gotten around to it. Well, for the holidays, I was going through the bag of stuff that she gave me, and one of them was a lovely silk skirt, and it had all these little pleats in it and everything, and it had just gotten too small and she wanted it let out. And I didn't feel like that was going to work. There was just not the way the fabric was laid and the way the pleats were, I figured I was going to end up ruining the skirt. And it was like super long on her too, kind of maxi lengths, and she's shorter than me. So I felt like she wasn't going to get as much wear as she thought she was going to get out of it. And I saw the fabric and I was like, this fabric, the gold tones and everything in this fabric are beautiful. What if I made her something out of it that she would actually wear? And so I used Buttrick 6464, which is the kimono set pattern that I made this past summer. And I had made 2 kimonos for myself out of that pattern, the Kimono Jackets. And I had my mom try on one of the ones that I made, so I knew that the same pattern size fit her. And I dissected the skirt, took it apart, and made her a kimono jacket out of that silk fabric. I actually had some gold satiny silky fabric in my stash that I used for the contrasting bands and for the collar band, and luckily enough I managed to get all the pattern pieces laid out so that I could use the hem of the skirt for the hem of the jacket itself, so that saved a lot of time there. And I think in the end it's a really nice piece. I think it actually, in my opinion, looks better than the skirt, and she didn't even remember that it was a skirt until I mentioned to her, but she really loved the kimono. And I think, again, she's typically in jeans anyways. I think she will get a lot more wear out of the kimono, wearing that over her tanks and things like that. So in the end, I think that was a really successful make, and I love the way it came out. Moving on into the rest of my December makes, one of the challenges that I participated in December was the Little Red Dress Challenge, hosted by Renata in Running in Style and Rosabella from Stone. And the challenge was to simply make a red dress for the holidays. And I ended up making the Sew Over It vintage shirt dress. I'd gotten the pattern on one of the Black Friday sales, and I had been really eager to make that dress. And I cannot believe that I waited so long to make the vintage shirt dress, because that pattern is everything. I love that dress. And I made it out of a red cotton fabric that had all these little hearts and bows on it. And what I love about it is that the pattern is not too holiday-ish. It can be worn during the holidays, but it can also be worn like Valentine's or just whenever, because it's a print that is sort of non-seasonal. A lot of what I made in December and early January, I didn't even get to wear. And still haven't actually worn outside of the house because it has been so cold. But I love that dress. I'm really happy with it. Well, rounding up kind of the holiday makes, in my winter plans video way back when, I had shared that I'd come across some novelty jersey fabric that had Christmas lights all over it. And I had in my head that I wanted to make a Coco from Tilly and the Buttons. I didn't know if I was going to make a Coco dress or a Coco top. I actually had enough for a dress, but I ended up going with a top. And I am so glad that I made the top. Like I said, it's been super cold this past winter, and wearing the top allowed me to pair it with like some warm jeans, and I've just gotten a lot more wear out of that top. And I wore it all through December and then on a little bit into sneaking it into January, even though it is definitely a very holiday novelty print top. I loved how it looked. I loved the funnel neck. It was just warm and cozy. The sleeves I found to be a little bit long, and I really should have brought them up a little bit. But it was, just because it was so cold, it was nice to have the sleeves that can kind of cover your hands when you need them to. The last thing that I made in December was the Jennifer Lauren handmade Mayberry dress. I was selected as a reviewer for the dress, and I love that dress. It's a shirtwaist dress with a drawstring waistline, and it also has this really great asymmetrical button placket, which I think really makes this dress unique and unusual and gives it a real charm to it. I made this dress out of, it looks like a linen fabric. It almost feels like it, but it was a very slippery to work with, unfortunately. But it was just a pale blue fabric. It was really lovely. Again, it was super thin, so it wasn't something that I could actually wear in January, although I did wear it for New Year's Eve because it was kind of my New Year's dress. Granted, I didn't go anywhere, so I was nice and toasty in the house. Immediately after making the first Mayberry dress, I made a second Mayberry dress in a beautiful seasucker fabric that has like a navy blue background, and it had all these orange and golden flowers on it. It was just really beautiful. I ended up running short on the fabric, so I couldn't do the nice sleeves that I had on the first one. So I ended up doing a shorter sleeve on the second one. But one of the other things that I really loved about this dress are the buttons that I chose. I looked through my stash and I found these vintage buttons. They're kind of an acrylic-y plastic honey color. They look like wood, but still not quite wood, and I thought it just picked up a lot of the tones of the flowers in the fabric, and they were nice chunky buttons, and because of the way the asymmetrical placket is on that shirtwaist dress, it just looked really interesting. I think it gave it an amazing detail for that dress. Now, some practical winter garments that I made were two sets of pajamas. Back in my sewing plans video, I shared some unicorn flannel that I'd come across, and I was going to make pajamas out of those. But I had a sister who was all about the unicorns, and it's purple, so it's her color. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna save these for her because she's gonna really love those. So I actually ended up going back through my stash and finding some blue snowflake flannel and some purple and white polka dot flannel as well, and ended up making pajama bottoms out of both of those fabrics. So I used the Margot pajama bottoms from Tilly and the Buttons' first book, Love at First Stitch. It's like the very first main garment pattern in the book. As for the tops, I wanted to sort of make pajama sets. And so I ended up deciding that I was going to make the Agnes top for the pajama set. And I will say my little Tilly pajama set, as I'm calling them, those have been worn probably the most out of my entire Mayberry wardrobe because they're so cozy and comfy. The flannel bottoms were so warm during winter. I can't wait to make more Mayberry pajamas. Other than the Mayberry dress and the pajama sets, I didn't really do a whole lot of sewing until the very, very last week of January, where I knew that I was planning to participate in the Smiley Challenge, which encouraged you to sew something that you felt beautiful in. And I chose to make yet another sew over vintage shirt dress because I had been in love with the first one that I made for Christmas. So I wanted to make another one of those, and I made it out of a similar cotton fabric weight as the first one. Of course, this is late January, so it is ice cubes outside, but I wanted to make it out of this cotton fabric. It was a navy type of color with these beautiful pale blues and lavender flowers on it. One of the things that I actually changed about the dress is I did a hack and used the long sleeve pattern from the Mayberry dress, which is also one that I absolutely love, and I added that one sleeve onto the sew over vintage dress. And the idea was just to have long sleeves for that dress, but I love the way the poof sleeves were and everything, and it came out perfectly. The very last thing that I made in January as moving into February was another cocoa top. As I said before, I loved my holiday cocoa top and I wore it into January, but I knew because of its print, I couldn't get away with wearing it any longer than that. So I had to find some more fabric to make another cocoa top. I ended up finding this pale blue fabric. It kind of has sort of a waffly type print texture to it, and it is jersey. It does have some stretch. It does not have a lot of stretch, and it's actually a relatively rough fabric. So while I love the top, I absolutely adore the color, and I've worn that top a lot. The only issue I have with it is it's not the softest thing in the world. Like, I actually prefer to wear a tank top underneath it just because it's a little rough on the skin. Speaking of tops, this seems to be a theme for my winter makes, is that it's cold in the winter, so I tend to wear a lot of jeans. So with the jeans, I needed more tops. And for Christmas, I finally got the toaster sweater from Sew House 7, which actually is what I'm wearing today, is the toaster sweater. I'm wearing it in my yellowy orange buttered toast color, as I call it, version. Now this version is actually the second version that I made. The first version that I made, I used a similar fabric to the blue cocoa top that I had made. So it's actually a plum purple color fabric, but it has the same kind of waffly texture to it. And again, it is not the softest fabric, but it worked so well. I thought it looked so nice in the toaster sweater. And I've actually worn that thing to work tons of time. Because of its texture, it doesn't actually look like a t-shirt. It has more structure to it. And it just looks really good with slacks. I've got some navy slacks that I've worn with it all the time. And so it just looks kind of dressy and professional. But although I loved that top, I knew two things. One, I needed more winter tops. And two, I wanted something way softer. So this one is just a lightweight jersey, and it's super soft, I can say. It is like super thin though, so you can actually see through it, and that is why I'm actually pairing it with a tank top underneath it, because that's the only way I can actually wear it out, especially if I have any kind of colored undergarments. You could see right through it. So that's the only downside to this fabric, other than it's being too thin. But overall, I really, really loved it. And the toaster sweater, if you haven't made it, you really should, because it whips up in no time. I took maybe an hour, a little more than an hour, because I'm kind of slow at sewing, to put this top together. However, sometimes you can get ahead of yourself. So I decided that I was going to make another toaster, and I wanted to really just whip it out. I had some stripy fabric, and the plan was to actually make the stripy shirt for the Sew with Stripes challenge that was going on at the end of February. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to whip this out. It's going to be no problem. I'm going to enter the challenge with the stripy fabric. So I had the stripy jersey, and then I had some orangey red fabric that was similar to this buttered colored jersey. And I had a little bit of each. So I decided that I was going to make the body of the toaster sweater in the stripy fabric, and then I was going to make the sleeves, the collar, and the neckband and the bottom band out of the orange fabric. Everything was going smoothly, and I had sewn the entire thing up on my serger, and that's where it goes wrong. Is the very last bit is that I have to add the neckband to the collar. And the stripy fabric, unlike the orange fabric, was curling all over the place, like just horribly curling. And you've got to pull the neckband a little bit to get it to fit. And I should have base stitched it on my regular sewing machine instead of trying to do it all on the serger. And when you work with the serger, you can't really put pins in it because you'll hit the needle, you'll hit the knife, which I've done and broken the knife, like when I very first got it. So I knew this from experience that it was dangerous. So you can't really add pins to it. And had I been working with a stable knit, which I did when I made this yellow one, I had no problems. But this time it was curling, it was moving, and I got all these horrible puckers, and what ended up happening is that the neckline of the front neckline, part of the base is shorter on one side than the other, so there's like way more funnel neck on this side than the other side. It just looked pitiful. It looked awful. The whole neckline, I was so distraught after I whipped it up that I just dumped it in the scraps bin. I was like, oh, this is hideous. So I didn't even bother posting a photo of it. I just didn't even bother. I was like, this is garbage. However, I was in need of more winter tops, and I was at home one day and I was like, didn't I make another toaster? And so I ended up putting it on, and I was like, it's good enough to wear around the house. So that's my house toaster. It has a horrible neckline, but it's still really warm and cozy. And despite its mistake, I wore it around the house since then, and so it's still wearable, just not to the quality that I wish it had been. My biggest undertaking for the month of February was the Day and Night Challenge dress. Now, many of you have probably seen the video for this project. This was a challenge hosted by Elizabeth from Elizabeth's Made Dress, and the idea was to make a day dress, something that you could run around and go have coffee in, and a night dress, something to go out and have cocktails in. And I took it a little different direction and ended up making a modern rendition of the Day and Night Barbie dress, so that it's a full wraparound dress. So you go from the office day wear to a night on the town dress. And this dress took up the majority of February just because I had to play with how I was going to construct it. I was using some interesting fabrics, including some sort of lacy fabric overlays and some taffeta. And I actually made a really nice suit jacket to go with it all. And that was a big undertaking. I was really concerned that it wasn't going to be as quality as I wanted it, so I wanted to take my time. And in the end, it got there. I really love that outfit. I have worn it to work a couple of times, so it is something very wearable, and I'm really happy with how that outfit turned out. My husband had been saying that I did such a good job on the day and night dress that I had no excuse for not attempting any other pattern. Like, I shouldn't be like, oh, I'm not experienced, I can't do this or do that. And with that in mind, I had recently just gotten the cinnamon trousers from Coco Waha Crafts. And I love Coco Waha Crafts patterns, and I was really actually nervous about trying any kind of pants pattern, but with the encouragement of my husband, I decided to dive right in. And I am so glad I did, because I love those pants. It was quick and easy to make. I love the contrasting pockets. I love the ruffles on the pants, the ruffles at the hem, the ruffles in the pockets. They're just like super comfy pants to wear, and it goes amazingly well with the blue cocoa that I made. And it actually also goes really well with this yellow toaster as well. And I just can't get enough of those pants. So much so, I'm planning another pair. I've had a lot of fun this winter making those items, and it really took me out of my comfort zone into doing some new and exciting stuff, like making the jacket, working with some interesting fabrics, making my first pair of pants, things that I didn't even really consider or plan on doing, I ended up doing, and I'm really happy with how they turned out and the construction of them. I'd love to hear in the comments below what you made this winter season. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Akram's Ideas, and if you did, be sure to give us a big thumbs up. Don't forget to follow Akram's Ideas on social media and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching!